I'm Jeff Ratcliffe for the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Slant. With NFL free agency set to kick off on March 11th, there's a number of key situations that could impact the fantasy landscape. So for you, the fantasy owners, I broke down the top 5 players that you're going to want to keep an eye on. At number 5, we have Julian Edelman. Now, 28 years old, he's no spring chicken, but he did set career highs last season with 105 catches and over 1,000 yards receiving. Now, obviously, a situation in New England opened this up for him, but he is a favorite of Tom Brady and also of offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. Thing with Edelman is he's a limited receiver. He's a slot receiver specifically, so he doesn't have a lot of outside ability. It looks like the likelihood is he's going to be back with the Patriots, which means he will retain some fantasy value going into 2014. Now, number 4, we have Ben Tate. Running back is extremely thin this year in terms of the free agency crop, and Tate really offers the most upside out of any player that you'll see in free agency at the running back position. He backed up Arian Foster over the last 3 seasons and didn't get much opportunity, but when he did show flashes last season in week 13. He rushed for 102 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Patriots. The problem with Tate is he is often injured, but he could be that sort of next step type player like we've seen in the past with certain players like Michael Turner come out of the shadow of a star and emerge as a fantasy star of their own. Now, Tate has been linked to the Jets, though this would be a very crowded situation with Bilal Powell and Chris Ivory already in-house. So we'll have to see how things play out exactly with Tate. At number 3, we have Hakeem Nicks. Nicks is a physically talented wide receiver and was arguably a top 5 receiver in 2011, but he's yet to really regain that form. Since then, only 3 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons, and last season it wasn't good. If you were a Knicks owner, you know that all too well. He dropped 7 passes, including a number of passes in the end zone, and just never seemed to be on the same page with Eli Manning. Now, that being said, the Ravens have shown some interest in Nicks, and they can likely get him on the cheap. He would be a great complement to Torrey Smith for Joe Flacco, and this could be a very interesting situation that fantasy owners want to keep an eye on because you're always going to want to dig deep for those deeper players. Nicks could potentially be one of those players if he lands in the right spot and gets things back together. Now, at number 2, we have Eric Decker, the NFL's newest reality TV star, and the jury's still somewhat out on Decker. Were his numbers the product of ability? Was it the Broncos' offense that ultimately enabled Decker a lot of success? And let's talk about the success. In 2 seasons with Peyton Manning, Decker combined for 2,352 yards receiving and 24 touchdowns. You're really not going to beat that on too many levels. But again, was it Manning? Was it the Broncos offense? Or is Decker really a legitimate talent? Now, to answer that question, let's look to 2011. In 2011, Decker had 8 touchdowns. In his second season as a receiver in the league. And who were his quarterbacks? Well, Kyle Orton and one Timmy Tebow. Yes, he did it. 8 touchdowns with those guys. Decker is the real deal, arguably the best wide receiver in this free agency class. And unlike Nicks, Decker's going to command a big contract. The Colts reportedly have interest, again, giving Andrew Luck a great weapon there in Eric Decker if that potentially plays out. So we see Decker as sort of that 1A type receiver and certainly somebody to maintain on your fantasy radar for next season. Of course, topping the list at number 1, Jimmy Graham. Yes, the Saints did use the non-exclusive franchise tag on Graham, but that means other teams can negotiate with him, and we would expect that probably is going to happen when you have a talent the level of Jimmy Graham. Now, the Saints, of course, have the option to match, but they could also they could give him up. If they let him go, they're going to be compensated with 2 first-round picks. So we'll have to see, of course, how this plays out, but let's face it, other than a guy named Gronkowski, Graham has been the tight end and really shown in this emergence of the fantasy tight end position. Over the last 3 years, Graham has 36 touchdowns, and 3,507 yards. Those are wide receiver-like numbers, so we'll have to see exactly how this plays out for Graham. But, wherever he lands, pretty likely he's going to put up these big numbers and be an elite-level tight end going forward for us. So that'll do it for this version of the Fantasy Slant. I am Jeff Ratcliffe, and we'll be back with another one.